One of the questions I've been getting recently, more frequently than I would have ever imagined, is how I interconnect devices and how I get signals routed from inside my trailer to cameras and vice versa. So I've kind of covered this a little bit here and there in some various other videos, but I'm going into a little more depth here. Hey everyone, my name is Doug. I run a company called Doug Johnson Productions in Orem, Utah. We do live event video production, things like conferences, concerts, sporting events, those sorts of things. And I run out of a trailer, and I've done a few videos about the trailer. I'm inside the trailer now. But I'm able to send signals quite a long distance by using fiber optics. And the solution that I've settled on is Blackmagic Design's fiber. And the reason for that is it's inexpensive, but also it's actually SMPTE compatible. So should I need to adapt to a fiber connection from somebody else, I can do that with basically a simple adapter. Now Blackmagic uses connectors that are called LC. So you see one of those here. It's in the bag still, but they're just little plastic clips. Just go into the connector and then clip into place. The fiber optic signal going back out to the cameras and then coming back from the cameras, it runs through this device here. This is the Blackmagic Design Studio Converter. This has 4 fiber inputs and outputs on the back. Obviously it's 4 pairs, so input and output paired together. There's 4 of those for each one of those devices. I have 2. There's one there, and then a second one down here. So this one runs the video for cameras 1 through 4, and this one runs the video for cameras 5 through 8. Additionally, there is a couple of Blackmagic optical fiber converters, mini converters, inside this rack, and so I can do 2 more video signals, send and return, out of this rack as well. Another thing that I typically do is I send different video signals into the venue through the different camera converters. Each one of these goes through the routing switcher, and so I'm able to send different signals through this one versus this one. So I typically send program through this one, which goes out to cameras 5 through 8. That way I can pull a program feed for the venue to go up on a projector or through a video distribution system or whatever, right off of one of those. And then for the first studio converter here, I will typically run a 2x2 4-channel multi-view to show first 3 cameras plus program feed for the first 4 camera operators. So that way I'm able to send 2 video signals that way, and if I need to, I can send 2 additional ones through the optical fiber converter that's internally inside this rack. In terms of actually getting signals from inside the trailer, or from the cameras to the trailer, the signals travel over a 12-channel trunk, or snake. And that's this right here. So that actually has 12 individual fiber strands in it. This is a 200 meter, which is about 650 feet, snake. 12 individual strands, which you can see going into my breakout box here. On an outside panel on the trailer, I have a patch panel that I can just open up and then plug in those 12 signals. I'm working on a simpler solution, though I haven't implemented that just yet. But yeah, I connect the 12 signals inside the trailer, run the snake, and then that goes to this breakout box here. And just very quickly, the first 9 connections are video from cameras. The next 2 are return video going to the cameras or program. And then the 12th is computer network. And I've done another video where I talk a little bit about how I've got that set up. I'm actually carrying signals for 6 or 8, I forget the exact number, but it's quite a number of individual virtual LANs over that one thing. So I can connect into the local facility's internet connection through using one of these, and I can also run network connections to my own gear, and that traffic is kept separate even though it runs over the same physical cable. Alright, now once the signal gets to my breakout box, it then comes out of there using these fiber cables. These are what they call armored. So there's actually a metal twist that runs around the fiber itself, or around the outer sheathing, to protect it. So someone can step on this and it's not gonna do any damage. These cables I have in lengths from 10 meters up to 200 meters. So I can run quite a distance from from my breakout box to the cameras. And once we get to the camera, that's where we connect to this device right here, which is the Blackmagic Design camera converter. So it has a fiber in, it has an SDI in, HDMI in, SDI out, HDMI out, connections for intercom, and then a connection for power. And so this basically provides all of the different signals that I need in order to run the camera. It also carries tally information as well. I haven't configured this one. Let me actually, yeah, I haven't configured this one to display tally just yet. But yeah, normally you'd see tally on these little LEDs here. If a camera operator needs to talk back to the director, they're each wearing headsets, and just pop that on here real quick. So yeah, they're each wearing headsets. This camera converter uses PC style, computer style headsets, just with the 3.5mm connectors. And so I can hear the director in the headset, and then if I need to talk back, I push the PTT button. And if I need to continually talk, I can double tap it, and then it locks into the on position. So yeah, there's also a headphone volume control on here, ability to change the camera numbers, make sure that tally's working. Obviously I hadn't done that yet. Power button, and then 2 buttons for controlling the level of the microphone. Over here we've got LEDs indicating the strength of the battery, the level of the battery, whether we have video coming in the optical, the fiber port on the bottom, and then video coming from the camera. So you can see at a quick glance whether the video is actually feeding into the camera converter properly. Additionally, in the monitor, you can see a red box around the active camera, so you can see tally. The camera operators can see tally there as well. What I don't have is a big red tally light on the front of the camera for talent, or people attending the event to see which camera is live. And that's one area I think where the camera converter solution is a little bit lacking. Blackmagic didn't opt to provide a tally connector on their camera converter. Now, a couple other things that I'm doing that are a little bit unique. And notice up here, I actually have 4 video sources in the monitor there. It's on top of the camera. I allow my camera operators a fair amount of freedom. We don't necessarily dictate every angle, every shot that they're going to get. What we've done is to show the camera operators camera feeds, 3 camera feeds plus program, and they're able to make a determination themselves what shot would be interesting. So if 2 of the camera operators are wide, the 3rd operator can see that on the monitor and say, hey, maybe it'd be a good idea for me to go in for a tighter shot. And that's unique. I've never seen that done anywhere else. Most people, all they would normally see in their monitor is either their local camera feed or the program feed. Now what I'm doing is I'm sending a signal from multi-view back to the camera converter, and by pressing the program button here, I can switch back and forth between local camera and that quad view. So if I press program again, this monitor does take a second to switch back and forth, but the camera operators are free to switch back and forth as desired. So they can either see what other camera operators are doing, what program is doing, or they can just look at their own local camera output. The camera converter is the product that really makes this possible. The one thing I don't like about this is the one piece in my entire arsenal that does not support 4K. So everything else I have will do 4K. This does not, which basically means that if I'm going to be trying to switch 4K video, I've got to run 2 signals. I've got to run this one for tally, intercom, return video, etc., and then I've got to run a separate one to supply 4K video to the trailer. And I can also do that over fiber, but it does mean that I'm taking up one of my additional fiber lines. So instead of one fiber from each camera, it becomes 2 fibers from each camera plus the 1 fiber going back to the camera for intercom. So a few other things about my setup here. I have sort of standardized on this style of zoom controller. Most people are more used to the type that have the rocker switch on them. I've actually come to appreciate these a lot more. So the way these work, the bottom row here is zoom out, zoom in at 1 set speed, and then another row of buttons here that zoom out and zoom in at a different speed. You can set those speeds using the little knobs here. So what I do is I set zoom 1 at the maximum speed and then zoom 2 at the slowest speed. That way I can use the bottom buttons to do a nice slow crawl, and I can use the top buttons to reframe in order to give the director another interesting angle of a particular subject. So most of my camera operators are coming around and liking these better than the rocker style as well. I do have the rocker style, but I'm using them less and less all the time. I have one of those here. It's the VariZoom RL100. That's not my favorite, but if someone does prefer the rocker style, I can provide that for them. The cameras that I'm using, I've mentioned this many times, but this is the Sony PXWZ150. It's a 4K camera. I really like this camera. It produces a very good image. It has a nice large 1-inch sensor on it, which basically has about 9 times the area to capture light that a typical camcorder does. It also means that you can capture a little bit of a shallow depth of field look if you're able to zoom in to your subject and there's reasonable distance between them and the background. It's 12 times optical zoom, but it has this technology that Sony calls clear image zoom, which basically is able to crop in on the image without loss of resolution. The imager in this camera is 20 megapixels, so even when it's shooting 4K, there are still a lot of extra pixels in there in order to provide detail. 18 times is what you get in 4K mode, and it actually does 24 times zoom when you're shooting HD. And 24 times is pretty useful. We're able to use that for a lot of events and really get in pretty tight for a lot of our subjects. The monitor on top here, this one's a newer DC70 model. This model has since been discontinued. They have a DC70EX, I believe they call it. However, I don't particularly care for it. The reason I like this one is actually has basically a sunshade built right into it, and it just flips open. The other thing is the cable connections on the back come out the back instead of out of the side. Most of the monitors that are out there these days, the connections come out the side, which means they're there where somebody can bump them accidentally, and I much prefer having the connections on the back. This monitor, the camera, and the camera converter are all can be all battery powered. This has a battery built in. Obviously, camcorder takes a battery in the back, and then the monitor takes the same Sony style of battery, and able to run for quite a while. This camera, when I use the 970 style battery, runs for about 5 hours. This guy runs for between 3 to 4, depending on which one of mine I'm using and how many charge cycles it's been through. And then this monitor is able to give me about 3 hours on a battery charge. So this box actually has a belt clip on it right here, and so a camera operator can stick that on his belt, grab a camera, and stick on a headset and wander around. As long as there's somebody to wrangle that fiber cable behind him, a camera operator can be free to roam and move about wherever he or she chooses to go. Yeah, this tripod here is actually Sackler. This is FSB10 head. I forget the model of the actual legs, but I bought them as a kit. They were matched and designed to go together. So not all of my tripods are Sacklers. Those are kind of expensive, and so I only have the one. Most of my other ones are Manfrotto, and they work pretty well. I'm using some of the newer ones. Some of the older Manfrottos get a little bit sticky. You go to move and it would kind of jump a little bit. The newer ones are much better. So I haven't had an issue with those. The Sackler's still better, but at more than 10 times the price you'd expect it to be. So this camera does have a shotgun microphone on it. My other ones do not. That didn't come with the camera. It's a piece that was bought separately, and that's really just there as kind of a backup in case we lose our feed from the house audio system or whatever. Anyway, that's kind of the gist of it. So this is what a typical camera setup looks like. I normally run 3 or 4 just like this, with one exception. I only have 3 Z150 cameras, so my 4th camera is the Sony PXW X70, which is pretty much the same thing in a smaller body, and visually the output of those cameras matches. I typically also run a couple of PTZ cameras. I use the Sony SRG 300 SE, and those also I run over fiber, both the network connection and the video. And I'll have to do another video at some point where I show how to do both of those over one single fiber cable. So I only have to make one run to each camera and have both control and video coming over the one cable. So it's kind of nifty there. I have other cameras as well. I've got a couple of shoulder mount ones. I've got some older ones that I still keep around, HD only, but I don't have many events where I need to use those. In addition, I have used this camera that I'm holding. This is, what's the exact model number on this guy? The FDR AX53. It's a Sony model. It's a 4K camera. Really good image quality. And you probably can't tell in this low light, but this camera actually does have really good image quality, and it is 4K as well. I also have a couple of Sony action cams, the FDR or something 3000. Unlike some of the other like portable action cameras that are out there, they do interface pretty easily with the switcher setup. I know there's a lot of headaches around people trying to get GoPros to work with the ATEM switchers, and I have none of those issues with my Sony action cam. So anyway, so that's where we're at. So I'm going to wrap this one up. If you guys have any questions, comments, suggestions, smart remarks, or otherwise, leave them down below in the comment section. Be sure and like and subscribe. I've got some other exciting videos coming up before too long, so be sure to stay tuned and look for those. So anyway, I appreciate you guys watching, and have a great day.